Hey, nifty America. It's me, your president, John Gotcha! 3 Dog here. How's everyone doing?
3 Dog is the voice of Galaxy News Radio in the Capital Wasteland, circa 2277. He is the DJ, the announcer, and a one-man resistance playing old-world tunes like Butcher Pete, I'm Tickled Pink, and Let's Go Sunnin', some of my personal favourites. But enough about me, let's talk about 3 Dog, his humble beginnings, his noble cause, and his strange disappearance. 3 Dog was born to parents who travelled as part of a theatre troupe, performing for settlements in return for what we can assume was either bottle caps, food, or shelter. We don't really know anything about his parents, other than the fact they raised him on old-world rock music, and instilled in him a deep mistrust of the government due to the Great War. He grew up believing in free speech, communal law, and standing up for what's right. And this likely led him to leaving the troupe and carving his own path in the wasteland. After travelling for a number of years, he started experimenting with jet, and in a chem-fueled trance, he stumbled upon Oasis, one of the more mysterious places in the wasteland, somewhere he might have spent a significant amount of time, as his past is both hazy and full of holes. But in 2272, deep in the ruins of DC, 3 Dog discovered the post-war ruins of Galaxy News Radio, and this gave him an idea. Just like his parents had performed in front of people, spreading hope and telling stories, 3 Dog wanted to do the same, only through radio waves and music. Of course, nothing worth doing is ever easy, and the station was in terrible condition, but 3 Dog was able to find someone who could help him. Margaret, a cranky woman with a slew of engineering talents, and the idea of helping 3 Dog run a radio station was too good to pass up. So with her help and a monumental amount of effort, the station was brought back to life. It wasn't perfect, and the broadcast could only go so far, as the satellite relay dish atop the Washington Monument was damaged and far too dangerous to fix, but the station could still reach plenty of people, and 3 Dog started spreading hope, as well as playing whatever records were in the building that still worked. A surprising amount had survived the Great War and the 2 centuries after, 20 songs to be precise. Not an extensive playlist, but just enough to keep listeners tuning in. Between songs, he spread the truth, countering Enclave propaganda spouted by the Enclave on their own radio station, which had a greater reach thanks to the iBots, as well as keeping those within range up to date with the wasteland's current affairs. And it was during this time where he coined the phrase, "fighting the good fight," encouraging wastelanders to resist raiders, slavers, and all forms of tyranny. The Brotherhood of Steel at the nearby Citadel heard 3 Dog's broadcasts and saw potential in both him and the GNR building. The station sat right in the heart of Washington, D.C., an area they believed was the source of the super mutant threat, given how many mutants were crawling around. That theory later proved false. The mutants were actually coming from Vault 87 and heading into the ruins to scavenge for more green stuff, also known as FEV, to bolster their numbers. Even so, GNR was a solid strategic asset. The building was mostly intact, easy to defend, and came with a DJ who shared Elder Alliance's core values, someone who was already fighting the good fight. In exchange for turning the building into a forward operating base, the Brotherhood agreed to protect the station. It was a great deal for 3 Dog, who no longer had to worry about raiders or mutants trying to get inside. And that's how things stayed for years, until 2277, when a man named James, on his way to Rivet City, entered the building and spoke to 3 Dog. He wanted to know more about the wasteland, who was doing what, where people were, everything that had happened for the last 18 years. Because James, who, as you might remember, lost his wife during childbirth, and in efforts to raise his child in a safer place, talked his way into Vault 101, where he stayed for the good part of 2 decades. But now with his child all grown up and able to survive on their own, he left Vault 101 so he could continue with his life's work, Project Purity, which is a story for another time. Three Dog told James everything he could, and once he was satisfied, he left. But not long after he did, James's child, now dubbed the Lone Wanderer, arrived, searching for their father. And this might seem a little out of character for Three Dog, wanting to help people and whatnot, decided that in return for information about their father's whereabouts, the Lone Wanderer was going to repair GNR's satellite dish, which they did, using a pre-war space-age Virgo 2 lunar lander communication relay dish taken from the Museum of Technology, a difficult feat fraught with danger. But once it was done, Three Dog was free to shout loud and proud across the entire wasteland, even reaching the fringes where smaller unusual settlements, like the Republic of Dave, could listen. And if they did, there was a good chance they would hear tales about the Lone Wanderer, because Three Dog knew they were destined for great things, and so he followed them throughout their journey, collating information and telling stories of how they left the vault to find their father, destroyed Raven Rock, restarted Project Purity, and defeated the Enclave, among many, many other achievements. But this is where things go dark, and by 2287, Three Dog vanished without a trace. Now back in 2013, Three Dog's voice actor tweeted that his character might appear in Fallout 4. That tweet was later deleted, and Three Dog was never seen in the game. I suspect it was difficult to include Three Dog, so many characters from Fallout 3 appeared in Fallout 4, and he might have been one too many. Even so, there's a couple of mentions in Fallout 4. McCready saying how he misses hearing Three Dog on the radio, and Diamond City's DJ, Travis Miles, does say keep the good fight alive after the sole survivor defeats the Institute, showing us that Three Dog's message has travelled beyond the Capital Wasteland, either through word of mouth or some other communication medium. However, there is a piece of Creation Club content that takes the sole survivor to the Capital Wasteland, to GNR, and things are very different. Before I go any further, I know Creation Club isn't canon. It can be lore-friendly, but it's not canon, so treat everything from here on out as nothing more than speculation. Around 2287, a major shift took place in the Capital Wasteland. The Brotherhood of Steel, once stationed at GNR, departed Adams Air Force Base aboard the Pridwin, leaving GNR to defend itself. Not long after, Three Dog and Margaret vanished. No one knows why or where they went, although it's most likely due to them not being able to defend the station by themselves. In Three Dog's absence, a group of inspired followers, calling themselves the Good Fighters, took over the station, led by a new DJ, Phil Goodman, known on air as the Ghoul of Cool. They kept the spirit of the Good Fight alive, broadcasting messages of resistance and unity, just as Three Dog once had. But peace didn't last. The Talon Company mercenaries attacked. The Good Fighters held out as long as they could, but with no reinforcements coming from the Brotherhood, they were overwhelmed. Forced to retreat, they scattered and sought shelter in nearby buildings. With the help of the sole survivor, the Good Fighters eventually regrouped and retook the plaza from Talon forces. But the cost was high. Many of their leaders had died in the siege, and with morale shattered, the survivors made a difficult decision: to leave GNR behind, rather than try to rebuild what had been lost. If we ignore this content, we can believe that Three Dog is alive and well, running Galaxy News Radio, but I feel as though the Brotherhood, going to a new location with a new population, would have had the foresight to take Three Dog with them to rally the good people of the Commonwealth, just as he did in DC. But that didn't happen, so did they leave him behind to continue updating the listeners in DC, or did something happen to him?
Maybe. It's classified.
While there is some suspicion as to how Arthur Maxson came to be Elder in the first place. We know by the time Fallout 3 concludes, Owen Lyons is still Elder. However, he passes away due to old age, and his daughter, Sarah Lyons, takes his place. Only she doesn't last that long, as she dies in battle shortly after. Others try leading the Brotherhood for a time, but they can't do a good enough job. So Arthur, whose bloodline traces back to Roger Maxson, the founder, stepped up and took charge.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
His achievements: killing 2 raiders at 12 years old, a Deathclaw at 13, a super mutant leader at 15, and then brokering a peace agreement with the Brotherhood outcasts, convinced the Elders back west to make him Elder. Ruling over Lyons' Brotherhood and the outcasts, who originally left because they didn't like how Lyons was caring about people and killing mutants instead of gathering technology as he was supposed to be, but that's what Arthur told his chapter to do. Helping people, as Owen Lyons was doing, was no longer a priority for the Brotherhood, and I imagine telling stories on the radio also wasn't a priority. So they left 3Dog to defend GNR by himself, something he was unable to do, and either that led to him dying, or he left. However, some believe the outcasts orchestrated Sarah's death to make way for Arthur, restoring the Brotherhood's original mission. And if that's true, there's no way 3Dog wouldn't have found out and started broadcasting about it, which could be why he was silenced. In this scenario, Margaret might have taken his place as DJ, which is something that can happen in the game, although she's not happy doing it.
Margaret here, bringing you music. Why just music? Because I'm just a technician and some asshole murdered our DJ. If 3Dog were here, he'd say something witty. But he's not, because somebody killed him.
And that's if they left her alive, which I'm not sure they would have done if they had killed 3Dog. That's one theory. 3Dog is dead. On the other hand, if 3Dog was able to flee in time, or left because he couldn't defend the station, or simply because his work was done at that point, he had fought the good fight in DC after all, the mutants were dealt with, the Enclave was defeated, and clean water was flowing thanks to Project Purity, so maybe by then he felt his job was done and moved on. And I think there's a solid chance, had he left, he would have headed for Oasis, somewhere nearby that he's been to before, allowing him to get his bearings before setting off elsewhere, and that could be anywhere else other than Boston for obvious reasons. And what would 3Dog be doing? Probably the same thing his parents did, joining or forming a travelling troupe and spreading stories to inspire hope. It's in his blood, and I think returning to his roots with some kick-ass stories is a good ending for 3Dog. And if we ever get another game set on the East Coast that happens shortly after the events of Fallout 3, I think it would be fun seeing 3Dog performing, maybe with a family of his own. Alas, 3Dog's fate remains one of Fallout's lingering questions. Was he killed? Did he leave? Or is he still broadcasting from somewhere out there? We don't know, but one thing's for sure, as long as people remember his message, the good fight isn't over.